If you've traveled abroad, you might have come across something called a tourist tax without even knowing it. This extra fee is often included in the prices you pay for flights or places to stay. It was first introduced by some governments to deal with too many tourists and to make money from all the people visiting. Nowadays, the money from this tax is also used for protecting nature and keeping tourist places nice. Interested to learn more? Stick with us as we tell you about the countries that have this tourist tax. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more interesting stuff. Now, let's get into the details. France. In France, there's something called the taxe de séjour, and it changes depending on which city you're in. Usually, it gets added to your hotel bill for each night you stay. This tax helps keep things like roads, parks, and other tourist stuff nice and tidy in places that get lots of visitors, like Paris and Nice. So, when you're visiting these places, don't be surprised if you see it on your hotel receipt. Greece. In Greece, how much you pay for this tax depends on where you stay and how fancy your place is. It usually costs about €4, which is about $4.36 for each night you spend there. So, if you're planning a trip to Greece, keep this extra cost in mind when you're budgeting for your stay. Italy. In Italy, the tourist tax changes depending on where you are. For example, if you're staying in Rome, you might have to pay between €3 and €7, which is about $3.40 to $7.94 per night, depending on what kind of room you're in. Also, starting in 2024, if you're just visiting Venice for the day during the busy season, you might have to pay €5, which is about $5.40. It's good to know about these extra costs so you can plan your trip accordingly. Japan. In Japan, when international visitors leave the country, they need to pay a fee of 1,000 yen, which is about $9.25. This fee is collected at the airport before you go through customs. It's important to remember this fee when you're budgeting for your trip to Japan. Netherlands. In Amsterdam, there's a tourist tax you pay for staying overnight, and it's 12.5% of the cost of your stay. This makes it one of the priciest tourist taxes in Europe. Besides that, if you're just passing through the city, like on a cruise ship, there's another tax you have to pay. It's €14, which is about $15.26 for every 24 hours you're there. So, whether you're staying for a while or just stopping by, make sure to keep these extra fees in mind. Portugal. In Portugal, there's a small tourist tax you have to pay when you stay overnight, and it's just €2, which is about $2.18. This applies to anyone over 13 years old. This tax is enforced in 13 areas of Portugal, such as Lisbon and Porto. So, if you're planning a trip to Portugal and staying overnight, don't forget about this little extra fee. Spain. In Spain, a few cities have decided to increase the cost of their tourist tax recently. For example, in Barcelona, visitors now have to pay €4, which is about $4.54 for each night they stay. So, if you're planning to visit Barcelona, remember to budget for this extra expense. Switzerland. In Switzerland, the tourist tax changes depending on where you are staying. Usually, it's around 2.50 Swiss francs, which is about $2.50 per night. This amount might vary depending on the specific location you're visiting. So, when you're planning your trip to Switzerland, make sure to check how much this tax will be in the area you're staying in. Thailand. In April 2022, Thailand started adding a tourist tax to the cost of flights. This fee applies to all international visitors and is set at 300 baht, which is about $8.44. So, if you're planning to fly to Thailand, keep this extra cost in mind when you're budgeting for your trip. USA. In the United States, many states, such as California and Texas, have something called an occupancy tax. This tax is paid when you reserve a place to stay. Houston, in Texas, has the highest hotel tax rate in the country. Visitors there have to pay a 17% tax on their hotel bills. So, if you're planning to stay in a hotel in Houston, remember to factor in this extra expense. As we wrap up our exploration of countries where you have to pay to be a tourist, it's clear that these fees vary widely across the globe. From France to Thailand, and many places in between, these taxes help support local economies, tourism infrastructure, and conservation efforts. Whether it's a small fee per night or a tax added to your flight, it's essential to consider these costs when planning your travels. So, as you embark on your next adventure, keep these insights in mind, and may your journeys be both enriching and memorable. Safe travels!